What's up guys, Asian here again with another build or theory crafting video I should say. I've been doing so many build videos that I kind of defaulted to that it seems. But this is a theory crafting video, and today we're going to be exploring the differences between Haunting Curse and Daedric Prey. This is specific to a magic sorcerer. So I already did a video way back in the past. This must have been like about a year ago now, between Daedric Prey and Haunting Curse. And so this is going to be a revisit of that video. So that video's conclusion was pretty much that for non-pet builds, obviously Haunting Curse is going to be best, and for a pet build, Daedric Prey is going to be the best. And that the DPS difference between them was substantial enough that you probably want to stick with Haunting Curse for the most part, because it had a smaller loss when used on a pet build compared to the loss that you use with Daedric Prey on a non-pet build. In other words, Haunting Curse, if you looked at how much DPS it pulled, like average-wise, was still higher than Daedric Prey, even though the pet build pulled significantly higher than the non-pet build at that time, at least. This was before they nerfed pets, but since then they've made a couple of changes. They actually buffed the Storm Atronach ultimate, and now pretty much every single magic sorcerer in the game is now using the Storm Atronach for their single target DPS ultimate, compared to before Dragon Bones, when we were using Shooting Star instead as our single target ultimate. So the Greater Storm Atronach now generally does a little bit more damage than Shooting Star in terms of absolute damage. It is about this, I believe it is the same cost, so it's still 170 ultimate. But in addition to doing a little bit more damage, the Greater Storm Atronach has a synergy associated with it that grants Major Berserk to the Storm Atronach and the person who activated that synergy, which makes it very useful for group DPS. You know, if you have a sorc drop a Storm Atronach, maybe not on top of the melee stack, but close to the melee stack, they can use that synergy and gain Major Berserk, which really helps out the DPS as a 25% boost to damage done for 6 seconds. So that's a really nice boost to melee DPS. So with that change to the using Storm Atronach instead of Shooting Star, you know, a natural question came up, which was, is Daedric Prey still a poor choice when it comes to a non-pet build? Because Daedric Prey still boosts the damage from your Greater Storm Atronach as well. If you take a look here, it boosts our Storm Atronach damage by 40%. So the downside is that Daedric Prey only has one explosion, and it happens every 6 seconds. Now, if we compare that to, let's swap over here to Haunting Curse. Haunting Curse has 2 explosions, one after 3.5 seconds, and another one after 8.5 seconds later. So you only have to recast Haunting Curse every 12 seconds compared to Daedric Prey, which you have to cast every 6 seconds. So one of the the downsides that we recognized early on was that Daedric Prey, if you're going to be using this as instead of Haunting Curse on a non-pet build, your sustain might end up suffering a little bit, because you do have to cast it almost twice as often as Haunting Curse in order to maintain that same uptime on Daedric Prey. So that was kind of the question here, and so we did a couple of parses to kind of figure things out. Now, the couple of things that I do want to point out here is that my Daedric Prey is not entirely leveled. You can see here it's only level 2. Haunting Curse on my tune is actually leveled up all the way completely up to Haunting Curse level 4. But the differences between there, it's going to be pretty small. You can see here that going up from Daedric Prey 2 to Daedric Prey 3 only increases the damage by about 100. So even if I did have Daedric Prey level 4 all the way up, it probably wouldn't have made that big of a difference in our ultimate results. Then Greater Storm Atronach is also only level 1. However, that doesn't really matter, because I used this exact ultimate between both of our tests here, so with Daedric Prey and Haunting Curse, so that was remained constant. The only thing that changed would be Daedric Prey versus Haunting Curse, and then as a result also my rotation, which I'll go into in a little bit here. The sets and everything were exactly the same between both builds, so it was 5-piece Julianos, 2-piece Lambris, 3-piece Willpower, 2 spell damage, 1 Magicka Regen, perfect Asylum's Lightning Staff with flame damage, and a infused Maelstrom Lightning Staff with a weapon damage enchant. Then everything else, you know, race, attributes, food, Mundstone were all exactly the same. Skill lines were pretty much exactly the same. Front bar was Crystal Frags, Force Pulse, Bound Aegis, Mage's Wrath, Inner Light, Storm Atronach. Back bar was Daedric Prey or Haunting Curse. Liquid Lightning, Bound Aegis, Blockade. I had Elemental Drain here, and then Thunderous Rage. And so our rotation was exactly the same as well. We opened up with a Thunderous Rage ultimate, and then from there on out, we kept using the Greater Storm Atronach whenever it came up. So the thing that I did that kind of changed up my ultimate was I tried to maintain as high uptime as I could on Daedric Prey and Haunting Curse. So I did, swap to my back bar whenever Daedric Prey or Haunting Curse ran out to reapply it. So that's something that I did there, and then I did a heavy attack every other rotation. So to give you an idea of what my rotation looked like, it basically looked something like this. So this is just an example of my rotation. I'm obviously not going to do the whole parse. Obviously I was using potions, and so you can see here that after Daedric Prey went off, I just swapped over. So that was the general idea of my rotation. I wanted to maintain as high uptime as I could on Daedric Prey and Haunting Curse, so whenever it went down, I swapped to the back bar to reapply it. And then every other full rotation on my back bar, I just did a heavy attack and just re-upped Elemental Drain that way. So that was the general rotation that I used, and then obviously when Storm Atronach came up, I just used it right when it popped. Or as soon as I could. If I was on my back bar when it popped, then obviously I had to wait till I finished my back bar rotation, then swap to my front bar for the Atronach pop. And so if we take a look here, hopefully Combat Metric decides to agree with me today. Okay, so yeah, so I think it's working. I think it's working today, which is good. So that's kind of okay. So you can see here, this is actually a parse that I did with Haunting Curse here. And I just did this. I already had a couple of parses saved up, so I just did this one to get an idea of the regen versus drain per second, which is one of the things that we wanted to keep an eye on. We want to know whether or not it would be a big difference between Daedric Prey versus Haunting Curse. So you can see here that our regen was about 1500, our drain was about 1600, so this is about 130. And then if we take a look at a Daedric Prey or Daedric Prey one, yeah, so this one is about 140. Let's see, this one was again 130. This one was about another. This was a little bit higher. This was about 160. So you can see here that the sustain was pretty much about the same between Haunting Curse and Daedric Prey. So it doesn't seem like that would be that big of a deal. Take a look at our uptimes. We had 83% on Haunting Curse, and then 68 on Daedric Prey. 64 Daedric Prey, 61 Daedric Prey, 60 Daedric Prey. So you can see here that generally speaking, it was a little bit more difficult to maintain high uptime on Daedric Prey compared to Haunting Curse. It was just the nature of the rotation itself. For starters, I'm not quite as comfortable with swapping so often on a magsorc, so this could chalk this up to rotation unfamiliarity. But generally speaking, just across all the parts, you can see here that it wasn't very high uptime. So that's something that we should also keep note of, that Daedric Prey does not have a very high uptime when we're using this particular build here. So now that's all the way. You can already see here, just from the disparity here, that the Haunting Curse was much higher. It was almost 2k higher than a lot of our parses here. So take a look now. If we swap over to our, let me just swap over. Okay, so let's swap over now. Alright, so these were our results. We did 5 parses with Curse, 5 parses with Prey. We have our mean, we have our standard deviations, and we have a percentage difference here. So we already know that sustain is not going to be that much of a difference between Daedric Prey and Haunting Curse. We do know that uptime on Daedric Prey is going to be a little bit worse compared to uptime on Haunting Curse. Do keep in mind though that Haunting Curse has a 12-second duration, which could contribute to why we saw much higher uptime on Haunting Curse compared to Daedric Prey. But the big thing here is we're comparing our DPS. So we can see here that the average DPS for Curse was about 34,000. and the average DPS for Prey was about 31.8 thousand. So that's an absolute difference of almost 2,000, a little bit over 2,000 DPS. And when it comes to percentage, that's about a 6.7, 6.8% difference in DPS between these two skills. So obviously, it seems like Daedric Prey still isn't very useful for non-pet builds. You're probably just better off just sticking with Haunting Curse between your pet and non-pet builds if you use both. That's just nature of the game, the way Daedric Prey is. I think it's a combination of having a shorter duration, so you need to basically swap over more often. And the fact that you're only really getting the additional 40% boost whenever your Storm Atronach is out, and generally speaking, you're only going to be able to get your Storm Atronach out for maybe about 40 to 45% of the fight, so you're not really getting that much of a buff from Daedric Prey to begin with. So if we hop back over to ESO real quick, we can compare the average DPS. We hop over back here. So we can see here that the Atronach Zap here under the Haunting Curse was 1379 DPS. And if we swap over to a Daedric Prey, Atronach was 1890. So it is a sizable increase, you know, so 1379 compared to 1890, which is about a 500 DPS boost, so it is about that 40% or so increase in DPS. But if we take a look at Daedric Prey, 1596 compared to 2419. So we're losing, compared to using Haunting Curse, we're losing 900 DPS or so. So we're actually losing on net 900 just between those two abilities. We're not even including, you know, the other abilities that might have differences in DPS here and there. So that's kind of the trade-off that you're making between using Haunting Curse and Daedric Prey. So my recommendation would still be to use Haunting Curse and to really master that non-pet build, because there's a lot of fights in the trials, and I suspect this might be true with the new trial coming up in Somerset Isles, Cloud Rest. That might not be pet sorc friendly, so it is a good idea, regardless of whether you want to main a pet sorc or not, to be very comfortable and have a viable non-pet build option available as well. So I would just stick with Haunting Curse. Just for now, it seems to be stronger overall between the two different builds that you might have on a sorc. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys found it informative, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.